What is going on, Diesel Nation? We're excited to have you guys with us today on the Diesel Podcast. If you're watching this on YouTube and aren't subscribed, make sure and click the subscribe button, like, comment. Let us know what you think about the episode. If you have any questions or suggestions for a guest or topic, we're always checking those. Got a list going. You guys have been really great about giving us feedback, so we're working hard to be able to get those guests or topics covered for you guys. Today, I'm going to be chatting with Tony and Tyler from Dirty Hooker Diesel. Wanted to chat with them about winning UCC. They have a crazy story, a lot of adversity that they faced, and I wanted to get the kind of inside scoop or behind the scenes, information about it, how they overcame those things, what they thought of the event, winning it. So it's going to be a great conversation. Before we get to it, though, I want to remind you our friends over at Kershaw Knives have a 20% off site-wide discount code for you. Just use code 23diesel20 at kershaw.kaiusa.com. It's a great way to save some money, get some really cool gear. So if you're in the market for a knife for hunting, fishing, EDC, anything like that, they've definitely got you covered. One of their newest models they've released this year is called the Duralock, and it's got a blade that's made out of D2 steel. The opening mechanism is really smooth, keeps your fingers away from the blade when you open and close it. They've got different designs for the handle material and also the blades. There's different shapes. So definitely make sure and check them out if you're in the market. Use the discount code, save some money, and get some really cool gear. All right, let's get to today's episode with Dirty Hooker Diesel, talking about winning UCC, the challenges they overcame, and what it was like to be at the event 2023, and basically recap their performance and what it all was like. Tony and Tyler, I'm really excited to chat with you guys today. I was really paying attention closely to UCC last week, and it was an amazing story. So I'm excited to chat with you and be able to learn more about the competition, about your guys' team, the event, and then even more about you guys and the things that you guys do. So welcome to the Diesel Podcast.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having us. Yeah, thanks.
Tell me, for some of our listeners that may not be familiar, we've had an influx of them over the last couple years where, like when I started doing these podcasts, I was a hardcore enthusiast. So I paid attention to all the races, all the teams, all the different types of things that were going on, all the development. But people have kind of turned to it to say, hey, my gas truck isn't working for me anymore, or I need to tow something. And they started to kind of get bitten by the diesel bug. So they may not be familiar with you guys, your company, and your race history. Can you tell me a bit about your guys' truck and your history with UCC and just competition in general? And then we'll kind of lead into UCC 2023.
So I'm really a ton of experience in truck pulling. Being successful at truck pulling. I didn't do a whole lot of drag racing, just messed around a little bit here and there. So I never even really had just a competitive truck and drag racing. I just had my pulling truck, and I'd take it to the track once in a while, right? So UCC had reached out to us to compete. They said that they had some of the competitors thought that we would be good in the competition. So that's when we kind of got started in the whole drag racing thing, right?
Yeah.
It was downhill from there.
Did you guys participate in the very first UCC?
We participated in all the ones that were held in Indianapolis.
Okay.
So we didn't go out west. So
now when you started it, I think back to the beginning, or when it was first starting, it was the first event that I knew of or that I'm aware of where you had teams from all over the country get together, and it was like the best of the best, whether it was a Power Stroke, Dynomax, Cummins, no matter what it was. You could see these trucks individually in different regions, but it was so rare to have them all in one place. So if you look back at the progression from your very first one leading into this one, what have been some of the things that you would say have been the most helpful or most enlightening with growth, whether it's with parts, whether it's the team, whether it's advice that you got, lessons that you learned? What has helped you grow from the first one leading into 2023?
I want to say competitors, it's a whole different feeling, a whole different realm of drag racers versus sled pulling, right? Drag racers tend to always want to help the next guy out. Doesn't matter what he's running, they're always there to help. And so UCC for the most part, them guys are all drag racers and dyno guys. And when it first started, I think I was the only sled puller, right? So it was really cool to see it kind of like a big family.
Yeah.
And everyone was more than happy to help. You know, some of the guys that have been the most helpful is, you know, like the fire pump crew, right? Or Derek Rose. Derek Rose is always happy to get right in there. Well, he doesn't have anything that's GM, right? But it doesn't matter. We always have our jokes back and forth to one another, but just it's kind of like a big family. It's a different feeling.
Yeah. Well, I think that's something that definitely bonds not just the competition world, but even the diesel truck world itself, like the community. I talk about that a lot, is how sometimes businesses started way back in the day off of a forum and guys networking with each other, and somebody made a part to fix an issue on, you know, say a GM or a Ford or a Ram, and they built their business that way, or you got to know people that way, and then you'd see them at, you know, a race or something like that. And the community is a very, you know, strong part of it. And so that side always interests me the most, especially, you know, at the highest stakes or the biggest exposure. When I think of an event, it's UCC competition. Going into 2023, what were your guys' goals for it? I'm sure it's to win and it's to perform the best that you can, but was there anything different with this year that you guys did in preparation for it than the other years, or how did everything lead up to, you know, showing up in Indy and getting ready to compete?
Well, we felt really good about doing it with one truck, right? So, I mean, that made us feel good. Right? We never go in saying we're gonna win this year, right? I mean, we just go do the best we can and see how the points tally up on the end, right?
Yeah.
Because if you have focused on just winning, you forget a lot of things, what it takes to win, right? So we just want to go out there and do the best we can and let the results show.
I did an episode prior to the event with Josh McCormick, and he mentioned something on there, and I think I probably spent most of the podcast talking to him about strategy, because it really fascinated me how much logistics, thought process, you know, strategy goes into something like this. With, I mean, so many things I don't know. I don't have a truck that's that powerful. I've never competed at that kind of power level, but I was really interested in kind of picking your battles, how you balance what you do. He had talked about being on the dyno and getting it to a certain level, and he thought maybe I could push it farther, but is it worth the risk when I need to go, you know, sled pull and things like that? How did that factor into the event, you know, say prior to it? So was there a plan in place, or did you guys think very similarly as far as, you know, we'll risk a little here, but we got to make sure we keep the truck together for this or that, or, you know, other parts of the competition?
Yeah, we've changed things. We're always changing things, right? And hoping that it's always for the better. But when you change too many, you know, when you have changes, it's trying to learn that whole setup. And it's definitely not just throw a part on and think that it's instantly going to go faster. That is, we struggled with a little bit of that this year. We didn't get enough track time because we went in with more cubes, bigger turbo, change gear ratios in the transmission, and change the rear suspension setup. Well, man, that's a whole year's worth of trying to get it dialed in again.
Yeah.
So we really struggled on our first day of drag strip. Our preparation, we go with a couple semi-trailers of tools and parts, hoists, and we have a couple other trailers. You know, we have another trailer just for the booth, and then another big trailer to haul some of the truck pulling equipment and a skid steer, and we have a big tent set up ahead of time before we get there. Prepping for the event, man, we're starting to round up things a couple weeks before the event. And strategy is always rolling through my head. You know, what do we, how is this going to work, right? How hard are we going to hit it on the dyno? We still have a truck pull. We don't have a spare engine. Being a fresh engine with everything new, you know, we thought that that thing was going to be good for the whole event. So unfortunately, it didn't pan out that way. But
one of the things that I love about racing is, you know, I'm thinking of people who might message into us and ask questions, and it can be somebody who's just starting a diesel shop or somebody who just started a construction company, but they're into diesel trucks, so they listen to it. And some of our guests will talk about business or how they grew. And to me, racing, it's like sports. It's taking all the things that we work on in our personal or business lives, but you can see it manifest itself in real time. You can see the truck go down the track. You can see the dyno number. You can see the interaction with the team. And so it's a great way to see these principles that we may not necessarily think of with racing or with diesel trucks or with making a ton of power or a sled pull, but that applies directly to other questions people ask, you know, about their businesses or other things. And so that strategy part is really key, because I think a lot of times, I'm sure you've seen this in your business, you get all these ideas and you think, should I do X, Y, Z, A, B, C, D? And you kind of have to pull back, slow down and think, well, where are my resources best put? How do I put the people in the right position? How do I not change too much, but change enough to still be on the cutting edge? Because if you change too much, then it all kind of falls apart. And you can see that with trucks and with racing and that kind of stuff. And one of the big things that kind of it goes in line with this is all over the internet was the day at the track and what happened to the truck. So I wanted you to walk me through that, and I think it's going to relate back to perseverance and, you know, kind of when you hit something that's really tough and hard and how you overcome it. But walk me through, you know, that run, what happened to the truck, how everything kind of unfolded.
so leading up to the day, our day Friday is supposed to be for the UCC competitors to have the track whenever they want it to get their times in and to get down the track. And unfortunately, our time was skewed with some of the classes that they had that they wanted to have for fill-in, but there was a lot of, I want to say amateurs because they weren't the pro guys, but that were oiling down the track, and we lost 3/4 of the day to oil down track. So we had been struggling a little bit to get the truck to go down the track. It's making so much more power, and we're having to take power away just to keep it from blowing the tires off. So Tyler had got a one pass down the track. The other times we were just blowing the tires off, and we're trying to tame it down, right? And it's always tough when we have all the power in the world, but you still got to get it down the track. And so we were qualifying for ODSS and the best times for UCC. And I'm pretty certain we're the only team that's done both events, or both, you know, UCC and ODSS at the same time. That adds a whole another dynamic to work and dedication to be able to run both events. And so we were trying to qualify for that and get our best UCC time. And we had a pretty good setup. And Tyler, it was moving, it was booking, but it was just a little bit too much spice. When our nitrous hit a little bit, it was enough to kick the tires. And Tyler's been through some tire shakes before, right? And he thought he was going to make it through it. And man, them things are like on ice, right? If she comes loose, it's you have zero control. I experienced almost the same identical wreck, hit the wall, like the same way that Tyler did a couple years ago, a week before UCC. So, seen it, I lived it. Number one thing is making sure that kid is okay, and then two is figure out what we're going to do next, right?
Yeah. So what was it like, Tyler, when that happened? Like, what were your kind of initial thoughts and thoughts through it once the truck kind of got a little loose?
So, well, started off that weekend, I was sicker than a dog. Thursday came down with a bad cold up here on the way down. So I still wasn't like in the right mindset. Like, I probably shouldn't have been out there, but well, when it happened, it felt really good. I drove, like he said, I drove through tire shake before. It felt like stuff I drove through, and I know the difference between bad tire shake and like stuff that is mediocre, like just kind of power through it. And well, by looking at the video, it wasn't just tire shake. It was actually skipping the tires and catching traction. Well, I can't tell that's happening. I thought tires were just, getting out of shape a little bit. It's not too bad. And as soon as I seen the wall heading towards me, I was like, great. I couldn't do anything. So about a second in, I'm like, yeah, I can't save this. I had the parachutes. They weren't gonna save me at all, but thought of it. And then slammed on the brakes, tried to slow the truck down before I hit the wall. And as soon as I hit the wall, first thing that popped in my head is, oh, great, the old man's gonna be pissed at me. And that's kind of just went through my head the entire night. And just like, man, I should have let off, tire shake, but I had a lot of pressure on me. Those is probably going to be the last one of the night, and I wanted it to be good, and it felt really good till I seen the wall.
Once you're okay and everyone's safety's good, what is the next thing that goes through your mind? Like, how bad's the damage? Can we fix this? There's a lot of time, there's a lot of effort, a lot of money, a lot of probably sleepless nights and thinking about it and putting it together. I imagine there's a lot of emotions that all of a sudden just hit all at once, and it's like, okay, what do we do?
Get it back, because I've been in the situation before. If you've watched the Dyno fire, right? Get it back to the tent and let's assess the damage, right? And before I actually made it back to the tent, they had the truck in the air and they had the front end off of it and starting to assess the damage, trying to see what's screwed up, what's not screwed up, what's savable. And, in my mind, always in my mind is a little bit, well, our weekend might be over, right?
Yeah.
And as long as this kid is safe, I'm strapping him in a missile every time. It's tough to send your kid down the track and see what's going to happen, right?
Yeah.
We got back and they started assessing, and we're like, well, all right, we should be able to put the turbos on it and do a dyno run, right? And we'll have the rest of the day to try to get it straightened around to truck pull it, right? So exactly when that accident happens, there's a million things going through the head of what's the next step, what can we do, what can't we do. Everything changes. Your whole game plan changes. So I just had to get to work at it, right?
How did that unfold? In the part I'm curious about is, like, did you take charge? Was it your whole team? Was it collective? Because I think back to it's not truck racing, but maybe things like that might have happened with me in business or other things. And I've kind of found there's one of two ways. Either somebody takes charge and everyone kind of falls behind, or it's a team effort and everybody just kind of pulls together, huddles together, and tackles it. And so that was the part that really made me curious is, so I'm just watching it. I don't know any inside info. Nobody's giving me reports or anything. I'm just like, oh man, how damaged is the truck? And how did they do this? Where did the leadership come from? Where did the teamwork come from? How did that all unfold to get the truck up on the air, get it, as ready as can be to compete?
So something like that happens, and I think, man, how much work this is going to take, right? And so I do have, besides the team and my boys, my girlfriend Kristen is a big push, right? I'm like, oh, it's wrecked, and she's like, well, you can get it fixed. And I'm like, oh. Okay, let's assess it, right? And so I just say the word like, hey, let's assess the damage, right? And the whole team jumps right in and they just start tearing things apart, right? And once we kind of look everything over and see what there is for damage, I have a couple I want to call it maybe team leaders that I can rely on, and one is Tyler, and the other one is Chad. And my youngest son is coming in. He would be a third, trying to help make things work. But I can take a break and I could go try to sleep for an hour or something like that. And between Tyler and Chad, they run the operation pretty good when I'm not there. When they have something heavy, technical, and they really want my opinion on it, right? They'll wait or call me or wake me up or come get my opinion, and then they'll run with it. So it's really cool. It's the rest of the team, my employees that are all there, man, they're like worker ants, right? And I say, let's get the front end off, and in a matter of 2 minutes, the thing's all tore apart. Everyone just jumps in and does it. They've been in that situation before, and it works good, right? And people respect Tyler, and people respect Chad, and so it works good. We have always had other teams come up and say, hey, what do you need? A couple of guys, toolbox, boxes of parts, anything you need. Some brought food, and we had food, but they still thought that, even helping with food was awesome, right?
Yeah.
We had some customers that wanted to be spectators or whatever, and they ended up hanging with us all night, right? And helping get things going. So I'm kind of rambling off here. I don't know what's one of the key parts that I might have missed that you were.
Well, I think you really highlighted it. I think what I didn't know that I gathered from it is there's a system in place and trust that you have with people. So you can make key decisions if they need to happen, but you have trust with your team, where it's Tyler or Chad or other people. You can trust them to, assess, look at things, get things going. Because that was one of the things when I saw that, I go, I imagine it's really tough to turn it around and be ready to compete the next day. They have to have a system in place. There's a lot going on there that I need to ask him if I get him on a podcast. How do you do this? Because people are genuinely curious about that in a lot of different ways. And like I mentioned before, might not be racing, could be business, or could be personal, could be something else. We think, okay, what about when we get thrown a curveball? What about when something doesn't go our way? How do we overcome it? Well, there's preparation that can happen beforehand, and trust and relationships that are built. to where you guys can overcome this. So, with the truck itself, how bad was the damage? Like, was it really bad? Like, I don't know, but it looked like there was a lot, but I wasn't there. I didn't see it. So I'm curious how much you guys had to do that night to get it ready for the next day.
So once they got the front clip off and they saw that the frame rail, and it's really strange because the direction that the frame had bent on the front, it moved a couple inches. But it didn't break the differential. It didn't break the steering. The body and, the front bumper that was destroyed. And so all in all, the damage wasn't that horrendous, but we needed to move the frame around to get that closer to where we needed it, right? And then matter of putting the turbos on, and we didn't know. So we had been dealing with all season with tire shakes because just trying to get this thing calmed down. And that many tire shakes on it took its toll on the crankshaft. And when Tyler hit the wall, he didn't shut the truck off, but the truck shut itself off. And it was nothing alarming. Like when we're back in the pits, I fired the truck back up and it sounded okay. It had a little vibration that I didn't like, but I thought, well, maybe the frame's leaned up against something or whatever. And it didn't, the little bit of vibration didn't even faze me because we've only had 15 attempts on making passes on that motor. And so we went right to putting the triples on and figuring out our dyno strategy, getting it ready for the dyno. We worked till probably 4 a.m, wasn't it? And some of them worked till about 4 a.m, getting the frame tweaked around, and we had to get the front differential out of it, and so we started putting our other front diff in it. But I think they were about done on it at 4, and then there's still some more things we had to do once we got up Saturday morning. And again, Tyler was sick. He was down and out, but he was still there, trying to get the thing done.
I kind of took Friday off, Friday nights. I was shooken up. I'm like, I got to go on the dyno tomorrow. There's already 10 guys working on the truck. I'm like, okay, I'm going to take my break tonight. Like, these guys can handle it.
Did any of this affect your strategy for the dyno the next day, or did it pretty much stay the same?
Pretty much dynoing stayed the same. It was just we had to do more work to the truck to get it to where we needed for the dyno. That wasn't scheduled. Our plan is to put the triples on, do some trading to get an early dyno. This is original plan, is to get an early dyno so that way we could do the rest of the ODSS racing on Saturday. And then Saturday night would be a really long night because we have to switch it all over to truck pulling. Well, after the wreck, I still wanted to get an early dyno, so we had the rest of the day to get it to truck pulling mode, right? So no matter what, we were still going to be busy. It's just now that we were busy because it was wrecked for truck pulling, and had to give up that ODSS run. So we didn't lose a lot of sleep over that, not doing ODSS. I mean, we were there for the UCC competition. Of course, we'd love to run the ODSS. Last year we won the points championship for the Pro Street class. So we're hoping we can back that up again this year, but we're throwing a curveball. So there's always next year.
Yeah. Well, and a part that I find myself almost forgetting about, but I shouldn't, because I'm really fascinated with the story and what happened behind the scenes and stuff. Is you're there to compete and you're there to win. So you have the drag strip, then you've got the dyno. How is that factoring into this? Because you've got, say after you do the dyno, you got one more day sled pulling. You mentioned that's your thing. That's the thing that you love to do. That's how you got started in it. How is the competition factoring into it? Where you're sitting with the points? Can I win this? How did that all kind of unfold mentally heading into the third day?
So all day Saturday is just listening to see how we placed on the dyno, right? And normally we're down on the dyno quite a ways. The Cummins are just doing an awesome job at knocking out some big numbers. But always just listening to, while we're working on the truck, I'm listening to the speaker, how someone placed and the power they made. And, when we heard, well, we had third place yet on the dyno after the dyno event, well, we were really amazed because, again, I don't know if you want to go into the dyno session a little bit.
Yeah.
So we pulled up on the dyno. We thought everything was just hunky-dory, and we wanted to hit it pretty good on the dyno. And so when Tyler made his first pass and the truck was breaking up horrible, and we're like, something isn't right. Chad and Exergy jumped into the log file trying to figure something out, and I went through every connection on the whole truck, making sure something wasn't loose and making a bad connection. And we saw something on the data log that said we were 5,500, 10,000, 5,500, 10,000 RPMs, right? And it was just breaking up horribly. And we were around 1,600 horsepower. And we quick shaved some material off of crank sensor, just trying to do any possible thing, right? And we're down to 40 seconds left on the dyno clock, with me jumping up there because we forgot to turn the nitrous bottles on. I'm cranking nitrous bottles and Tyler's starting it up, and there's 40 seconds left, right? And Tyler did that's the fastest dyno run I've ever seen anyone do, right? As I think a total, 36 seconds or something. Yes. He brought it up and they put the load on and he did a rip. Well, we started the dyno run at 3,300 RPMs, and he got into it 1,200 RPMs, so he was up to 4,500 RPMs, and the motor shut off.
Wow!
And we didn't even get half. We probably got half the nitrous into it, and the motor just shut off. And I didn't know that the motor had shut off, but I knew it didn't sound good. It just wasn't a successful pass, right? And I'm like, oh man, I don't know if that was even 1,600 horse. And when we walk up there, it's almost 2,400 horse. I'm like, wow, that was really good just for a little blip on the dyno, right? And yeah, it wasn't going to run no more. He did 24. So now in my mind, I'm like, that should have been a good 2,800 horsepower pass if we would have had a full pass on it. Right, if that crankshaft wasn't cracked. We didn't know for sure that the crankshaft was cracked, but with the misses and the way it was acting, I mean, that was what I had diagnosed just by sound and experience. So it knocked out the valve train in that motor. So Tyler did what he could do, and we did I'm impressed we got 2,400 horse out of it with a cracked crankshaft. That was just that was throwing a paper plane in the wind, right? So, so now we know we have a bad motor and a wrecked truck on Saturday, right? I'm like, all right, here's the second time for the weekend. I'm like, well, are we done? Are we going home early? Are we loading up? And my youngest son's like, take the motor out of my pickup. I'm like, thanks, buddy, but that motor's only going to hold 1,000 horse, not 2,000 horse, right? We're going to get halfway down the track, and I'm going to blow his motor up. That's for his truck. So we have some really cool friends, the Humpies, Humpy Jr., Humpy Sr., were there to pull in the truck pull as one of the fillers for the weekend, right? So that I think Fleece sponsored the pull, and Humpy's had 2 trucks there, a 2.5 truck and a 2.5, 2.6 truck and a 3.0 truck. And the Humpies are like, well, we take the motor out of the pulling truck as soon as we're done pulling. So we spent, after the dyno event, we spent that afternoon, because we finished up, I think, between 1 and 2 o'clock, that we realized that the motor was spent. And we immediately started pulling the motor out and start switching the truck over to pulling stance. And I think it was 10 o'clock or so when Humpies were done pulling with their truck. So they're pulling up to the tent with a hot motor. And I seemed like there was 4 or 5 different teams doing different things all over the place in the tent. If you watch some of the videos, you see a lot of people busy, and pull the motor out and strip it down and put all of our goodies on their pulling motor and stuck it in there. Now that night, we didn't finish until 1 o'clock, which was time that the pull started. So people were working on the truck all night, getting it set up for pulling and getting the motor swapped. We ran into a couple little glitches of a CP3 pump gear had failed. So we thought the motor was all good, and I wanted to do one last test on the CP3 pumps. This was at 12 o'clock. I said, all right, it's running. Let's test. Maybe I should just test CP3 pumps. And we had one pump that wasn't doing anything. And normally that's about a 2.5 hour job, tearing the front of the motor back apart, change. And we got it done in an hour. But we were all tired, very tired, and still push, right? Trying to do a 2.5 hour job in an hour, and we got it done. We got it done.
It's crazy to think about. You have a wreck, and then an all night, getting the truck back together, go on the dyno. You have the time crunch, which, I think sometimes hard decisions and stress, you can handle them if they're spread out, but then you think, okay, you got 40 seconds to deal with this. And then you have a broken crank, an engine that doesn't work, and then you have one more day to do. I've never heard of a story like this. Like I've been doing this for 7 years, and I haven't ever talked to somebody that's had this many things happen so quick, with the stakes so high, with so much that you guys have invested, which it's really cool to hear the story. So I think of now the sled pull. Is it almost a relief? Like if it breaks, it breaks. We don't have to, redo the whole truck in a certain amount of time. It is like whatever happens, we're good with it.
Yeah, well, it's this is something simple, but to load that thing back up in my semi-trailer, my toter trailer that I take it to all the events, we would have to do a bunch of tearing on to get the pulling axle back out of it and everything else. And we had worked so much all weekend that I'm like, you know what? We're going to put that thing on the open trailer. We're taking it home in an open trailer. We'll just take the weight box off and we'll strap it down and put extra straps on the hood because the hood was lost. Of course, everything's all mangled in the front. She's going home in an open trailer. We'll deal with it when we get home, right? So the fact that it was running, we got everything, got it across the scales, got it loaded up. I had a little concern about a little programming glitch. And I questioned a few times. I'm like, man, this just don't seem right. But so we were listening. I have this bother me a little bit, and man, my guys are wearing holes in the asphalt there because they're just the anxiety, the nervousness, everything. Right, we're down we didn't know even if we could win this event at all, right? That wasn't it. We just wanted to finish, right? We wanted to get through this sled pulling, and I'm very confident in the truck and its performance in sled pulling. We were the last to pull. And so then we had an idea then of who we had to beat and by how far. So we really didn't have that before, right? I liked being the last one, knowing who I had to beat and by how much.
Yeah.
And we pull up on the track and the truck comes out beautiful, and I hit lockup, and all of a sudden it goes into a rev limiter mode. So the thing was only running at 3,800 RPMs and like half the fuel. I'm like, what's going on with this thing, right? And it's starting to die down. So I unlock the converter and the thing comes to life. I'm like, there's a rev limiter in there tied to the converter lockup switch. And that thing just took off. It actually, at 200 feet, have you ever truck pulled?
No.
Okay. So truck pulling, it's just kind of a gradual up to speed and slowing down. If you get a truck that hooks to the track, you'll have a gradual pull, and usually when the truck hooks to the track is like 75 foot to 100 foot. If you actually hook to that track, it'll push you back in the seat. You don't feel that all the time, right? That just happens once in a while. And it's only in the early stage of the pull because the weight's coming on so fast on the sled. You're not going to feel that acceleration at 200 feet. You're not going to feel that acceleration at 150 feet. It's always going to be really short when you can actually feel those tires hooked to the track and it pull hard. Well, when I unlocked that button, when I unlocked the converter and that thing come to life it was over 200 foot, it put me back in the seat. And I'm like, never, ever have I ever had anything put me back in the seat at 200 feet down the track, right? I'm like, oh yeah, here we go. So we succeeded by beating who we needed to by a couple feet. We didn't win the truck pull overall due to that little glitch. But that was actually probably the first time that I smiled all weekend because I was just stressed out all weekend, right? And after the truck pull and it was all over, then I think I had a happy smile, a happy face, didn't I? I mean,
I don't know.
He doesn't like truck pulling. He likes drag racing.
I was standing by the fire punk boys.
Yeah, he didn't have anything to do with the truck pulling, so he was happy.
What kind of emotions, like, after you complete all this, and I mean, it was like a gauntlet from everything you described to me, and just, things, any one of those will stop, most teams or trucks from competing. How do you feel at the end of it? They're tallying up the points, you see, where you land, you win the whole thing. What's that like emotionally?
So I'm a very emotional person, and having my boys there, having my woman there, having my employees there, there was a million hugs, right? Tears and hugs, and it's pretty emotional. I don't know. It's really tough for me to explain. It means a lot. It's something that doing that event and winning it and not knowing that we were going to win it, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I tell everyone we really sucked all weekend. We sucked all weekend. The only thing that come out of it is we were consistent at sucking, and that's how we won the event, right? We were consistent, and we won that. Yeah, I mean, that was mind blowing, very emotional.
Yeah. Well, you might be being humble because I think of it as it was more than just a competition. You think of the problems and the issues and the fixing and the team and everything put together. It's almost like you won two competitions. You won UCC, but then there's also this internal one, as well, with stress, anxiety, what's going on. We've invested so much time. We drove all the way down here, got everything set up. So I think it's, you won two different ones, which is what I was really looking forward to chatting with you guys about because, we can see it on social media, on Facebook, Instagram, see posts that people do. But I think what really inspires people where they pull lessons from this is from understanding the time, or like what Tyler mentioned with, oh man, I just wrecked the old man's truck, and, all these different things. That's what we want to hear and what inspires people. So it was really cool to chat with you guys, and I'm glad we had the opportunity to do it. And I know you guys, people listen to this and they might say, hey, they're just down the road from me, or they're, a couple towns over from me. And it's always like our guests, when they're on here, if people hear this and they want to reach out to you guys, maybe they need something done, maybe they have questions, maybe they just want to say, hey, I was there, I watched you guys inspired me, thank you. What's a way that they can reach out to, you guys, your team, whether, website, calling in, maybe they got truck questions, things like that. What's the best way to contact you guys?
So we have multiple ways, but it's pretty easy. You Google Dirty Hooker Diesel. There's we'll get you in our website again, right? And we're answering any direct messages on Instagram and TikTok and Facebook. We just maybe not right instantly that day, but we get to all of them. Or they can call the shop. The shop number is 989-479-0444. Emails are pretty easy. I mean, if they want to get to Tyler or myself, just Tyler or Tony at dirtyhookerdiesel.com. I mean, they can email us. We're not hiding. We're busy. We'll get to you. There's no one that's not important enough for us to talk to and chat and try to help and do what I can, right?
Well, like I said, guys, I really appreciate you opening up and talking to me about some of the things you guys face, giving us some things to think about, some lessons. And I know there's a lot of people out there that are really inspired by what you guys did. And hopefully, this platform allows you to kind of tell that story and expand on it. So I took inspiration from it. I took lessons from it. And I know a lot of people out there are proud of you guys, and it's cool to see these stories, and it's what makes diesel, and I think the diesel community, so special. Is stuff like this, the team that you've built, the things that you talked about. So it was a pleasure to chat with you guys. I look forward to potentially chatting with you guys in the future. You got some more stuff going on you want people to know about, definitely let me know. And thanks for sharing your story with us.
Oh, not a problem. Appreciate it. What you helped do for the community, and thank you for having us on.
Don't forget, diesel fans, make sure and head on over to Kershaw.kaiusa.com and use code 23diesel20 for 20% off site-wide. We appreciate our friends that are offering the discount code just for diesel podcast listeners and fans. They've got a ton of cool different models, whether you need something for like hunting, fishing, EDC, anything like that, and really to meet any budget. So they've got a bunch of new releases this year. I did an episode with them in January talking about some different designs that they were working on, but their latest one is called the Duralock model. I got a few of them myself. I love the way that they open. It's really smooth. And it keeps your fingers away from the blade when you open and close it. So definitely make sure, head on over, check it out. And if you got any questions, anything like that, they're more than happy to chat with you. I've had some questions about things before, so I'll email in or give them a call. So wanted to remind you guys of that. And also want to give a shout out to some of our Patreon supporters: Tyler Loewen at 23 Diesel, J. Cole, John, all of our other Patreons, all of you who subscribe on YouTube and podcast apps or on our Discord, follow us on any of our social media channels. We appreciate your support here in year 7 of the Diesel Podcast. We're hard at work getting some episodes for you to keep you busy. You guys always let us know, hey, I love listening to you in the shop or working on my truck or I'm out on the road. So we got some really cool stuff coming up for you. Can't wait for you guys to listen to them. And if you guys have suggestions, reach out to us on social media, send us an email. We love to be able to take the things you guys want to hear about and then get them onto the podcast. Until next time, keep the shiny side up.